compared the people of America at that time of crisis to the children of Israel, whom, to remind you, were rather contented to serve or to be the slaves of the Pharaoh in Egypt so long as he was a loving parent and a kindly master. But when his heart was hardened and he denigrated into a hard and cruel taskmaster, why, Almighty God himself divided forth the Red Sea and led his chosen people to the promised land. I earnestly believe that we were embarked upon that same expedition, and further, that it was the will of God that I be one of those men leading that army of Christian soldiers through that divided ocean. And thus, all the while, what drove me forward was that whatever the Almighty should have in store for me, even if it should have been hanging from a tall tree at the end of a hempen noose, it was well with me. But add to all of that, and you might well imagine what civil discord this created within the Henry household at the time. But a great many years ago, when I was still a wee lad, my mother and all of my 7 sisters announced at the dinner table one afternoon, with my reverend uncle there present, that they had embraced the Presbyterian faith. And as a young boy, I too were taken to hear the sermons of those great dissenting preachers there in the hills of Hanover. This was a time, you may recall, some of you, the 1740s and 50s, which already some are beginning to refer to as the Great Awakening. Hanover County being its birthplace, just a few miles distant from my house. And those men, too, were a profound influence upon me, not only with regard to my spiritual convictions, but with regard to my general understanding of liberty, and that being the most precious of all worldly blessings. Having said that, I pray that you will take my word for it, that I consider the Christian faith to be of infinite importance to me and to our society. Now then, I believe before I proceed on to my particular bill of assessment, it might be proper for me, for those of you who might be travelers to our country, to understand how the relation of church and state has ever been, how it has ever figured here in Virginia since the time we were established as the first British colony in North America. All we ever knew, at least until we declared independence in '76, was an established church, the Church of England, state church. Now what does this mean? Well, to begin with, our laws required all Virginians to attend divine services at least 1 week in 4, once a month. If one did not attend church monthly, one would be fined rather stiffly. If one did not pay the fine, one would be jailed. Why, for a period of about 20 years, our jails throughout Virginia were filled with Baptists. But also, having this required attendance, there was a very practical reason to it. Of course, it's not only to reinforce the mild and benevolent precepts of the gospel of Jesus, it was also to ensure that we had the best possibly informed citizenry. Remember, if you please, half our society still can't read. A greater number besides not subscribe to newspapers and the like, and there is that period of time during divine services for public official announcements to be read aloud. The recent acts of the legislature, for example, writs of election, bans of marriage. So by having regular attendance, one is going to be kept apprised of those events that are taking place elsewhere throughout Virginia, other than the parish itself, that might directly affect their daily lives. Certainly a very prudent idea. Now, also having the state church required that all heads of household, all taxpayers, had to pay an annual tax